Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Behind the Curtain. I'm your host, Lauren Shippey, and today I have my good friend Craig Cooney on the podcast. Welcome, Craig. It's great to have you back.
It is so good to see you again, Lauren. It's been a little while, but it's wonderful to be back with you.
Oh my gosh, I just love your work. But for those that listen and don't know about what you do, can you tell us about Daily Prophetic? Kind of give us the overview of how it started, how you came into this, and,
Sure,
and where you are
sure.
now.
I'll give you the brief version. Well, I'm a pastor, first of all. I've been leading churches for 20 years here in Ireland. This is my 20th year of church leadership. I'm married to Becky. We've got a son called Elijah, who's 12, and a Labradoodle called Henry, who's 4.5. And
Can't
so,
forget the puppy. I love that. We have one
and
too.
so I've been leading churches for 20 years, but in 2016, we went through a massive transition as a family.
Okay.
We didn't have any tools to navigate that. And we kind of left the church we were in. We left the church owned the home. We left our jobs. We left the city, and we just had nothing. And so we
Wow.
ended up in this year of just upheaval and wilderness. But out of that, I guess God began to teach me about transition. And so
Mm.
2018, once we kind of started moving out of it, I started an Instagram page. And so it's not that, I mean, that's what, 7 years ago now,
Yeah.
which for Instagram had been going for a long time, but I was on Facebook. I didn't know anything about Instagram. There wasn't any big divine purpose. I literally wanted to learn how to use Instagram. So I set up a page called Daily Prophetic, just started posting what I felt God wanted to say. And I thought, I mean, we're going to be talking a little bit about imposter syndrome. I
Yes.
literally, even with that, I thought, who am I to tell anybody what God might be saying? So
Right.
I thought I had blocked everyone I knew from the page, but I
Oh,
hit
that's
the wrong
great.
button and invited everybody I knew to follow the page. So
Did you
then
really?
I'm having this sweat moment where I'm deleting everybody and blocking everybody, and on it was mortifying. And anyway, so I'd start posting on this page thinking like me, my wife, and maybe my gran might, my Instagram gran might read it. And it just started getting traction, like 1,000 followers a week, and just
Wow.
people. And I began to then post about transition, because we were just coming through that journey, and those posts really began to resonate with people. So I just kept leaning into that and thinking more about our own journey. And then at the end of
Yeah.
2018, I started writing my first book called The Tension of Transition. And
So
again,
good.
massive imposter syndrome. I mean, honestly, who would
Yeah.
want to read what I've got to say?
Oh, yes. I know that
All of
feeling.
that. And so
Hmm.
just every time you're doing something new, you go through this, what am I doing? I feel like
Yep.
a
The doubt,
fraud, all of that.
doubt,
People are going to
fear.
laugh at me. Nobody's going to
Yes.
buy it. So
Yes.
I self-authored it. I, I printed 1,000 copies because I thought I'll sell 900 of them, or I'll sell 100 of them and I can keep 900
All
as a
right.
door propper, door opener or something like that. But
Yes.
literally, again, the 1,000 copies sold out within like a week. And so I
Wow.
printed another 500. They sold out within another week. And so I just went through Amazon at that stage. And so then
Yeah.
6 books later, here I am. And then
Here you are.
a
Wow.
few
That
years
is
ago, I
so
started coaching
amazing.
online. And again,
Yes.
that
Remember
was the
that.
next jump of nobody's
Yep.
going to sign up. Why would anybody want? And the first cohort sold out within 2 days, and was
So cool.
oversubscribed. And I think I've coached 850 people in
Oh,
the last
wow.
2 years on 6 continents. And the next cohort is already, as a waiting list. And so, but I guess what I'm trying to say,
So
I'll say
cool.
two things. One is, you just have followed my favor the whole way through. And I have this expression, follow your
Hmm.
favor. What is
Hmm.
God like? There's no grand plan, and there's nothing wrong with planning, and there's nothing wrong with having dreams and visions and ideas and goals. All of that is wonderful. But
Yeah.
for me, it has been, what is God breathing on? What is his favor behind? What am I not having to push really hard? But there seems to be an ease and a grace with it.
Yes.
And so I've just
Grace.
kept leaning into that. So that's the first thing I would say, is follow
Hmm.
your favor. And the second thing is, at every stage along the journey, you will feel this unqualified imposter syndrome,
Yes.
insecurity, inferiority,
Yes.
inadequacy. All of those things are completely natural and normal if you're doing anything new, bigger, or different.
Okay, that's so good. And I'm
And
just
that,
laughing because I feel exactly the same with every new thing that I
yeah.
do.
So, I
So,
mean,
yeah,
even
it
doing
doesn't
this
go away.
podcast, I'm sure you felt that.
Yeah, and I started in 2020, but still sometimes
Yeah.
when I have certain people on certain things, I'm who am I? I'm not qualified to
Yeah.
do this. I'm not
And
qualified
others
to
are more
interview this person.
qualified than me. Everybody's more
Absolutely.
qualified than me. And so
Yep.
you look at other people in your space and you like they're the real pros. You know,
Yep.
they
That's
know
right.
what they're doing. Even as a pastor, I go to pastors' conferences and I mean, even though I've led two of the fastest growing churches in our nation in the last two churches, I go in feeling like I'm not as good a pastor as everybody else in the room. And it's
Isn't that
just,
wild? Like, what
but
is that? What
well,
makes you?
somebody described it as being a little bit like what anorexia is to the body, imposter
Hmm.
syndrome is to your competence. So if you've
Ooh.
ever known anyone with an eating disorder, you look at
Yes.
them
Wow.
and you see them as wonderful or else as too skinny, if you're being honest. They
Mm-hmm.
look in the mirror and they see someone completely different.
Yeah. Not
And
clear.
so
It's clouded. Their
it's
vision is
clouded.
clouded.
It's all up here. And so with
Yes.
imposter syndrome, everybody else might look at you and go, you're incredible at what you do. You know, you're
Right.
gifted, you're
Right.
talented, you have
Yeah.
so much competence. But you look in the mirror and you see someone who's a fraud, who's a failure, and you're just waiting for
Yeah.
people to find out that you shouldn't
Yep.
be in that place
Yep.
and space.
That's right. That
And
is
everybody
so
else is more
true.
qualified than you are. And I,
That
I,
is
I just
so
felt that was
true.
a really good analogy because um, I guess I always grew up feeling I've always had weight issues. And so even no matter how skinny or how much I've gone, I've always looked in the mirror and thought, I need to lose weight. And
Hmm.
in the similar way, I've always kind of went, I'm not qualified. I'm not competent enough. Others are more qualified. Others are more adequate. Others are more sufficient. Others are more gifted. Others are more intelligent.
Yes.
And it's always, I guess the root of it is I am not enough.
That's
I am
right.
not
And that's what we were talking
qualified,
about. I don't have what it
prepared,
takes. I'm not enough.
gifted,
Yep.
old, young,
Yep.
beautiful, skinny, whatever that is.
Whatever it is.
I
Yeah.
am not enough.
And so it's really like linked to not truly being aligned, right? With I feel like in that moment or in those moments we're coming out of alignment with the Father because we're forgetting who we
You're
are
forgetting
in
who you are.
our identity, right? Like in walking in our purpose and
Lauren,
calling
that
and
is
all
it.
that.
At its
You
very
know?
core, it is an identity issue.
Right.
It is an
Yeah.
identity. And that's where God has been really
Hmm.
going deep with me recently, is this whole
I love
identity thing.
that.
But it's we see it throughout scripture, don't we? Moses.
Yeah. Yeah.
Moses was prepared for 80 years. And God shows up and he says, I'm not ready. I'm not qualified. Who am I?
After 80 years.
80 years, 40 years, and in Egypt, training in the royal
Mm-hmm.
court, and
Mm-hmm.
40 years in the desert, leading stubborn sheep. And what was he going to do for the next 40 years? Lead stubborn sheep through the wilderness and God's
Yeah.
people. He'd been
Yeah.
prepared for 80 years. Who am
And
I that I
still
can't
felt
speak? Gideon,
unqualified.
the Lord is with you, mighty warrior.
Yeah.
I'm the least, I'm the least, I'm the least, I'm not qualified. We see it
Yeah.
the entire way through scripture. It is normal, it is natural. And the bottom line is this: none of us are really qualified.
It's so true.
You know,
No matter
isn't
how
it?
much we do or
Yeah,
prepare or overcompensate,
yeah,
overcompensate keeps coming to mind. Like I think it can cause
yeah.
us to
And totally.
try to overcompensate in different
Perfectionism.
areas. Yep, 100%. Hi,
You work
FU.
harder than everyone else because you feel you have to, just to, you
Yeah.
work later, you correct every typo, you freak out. I mean, my books are
Yep.
full of typos. And people love to
That's
point
great.
them
You
out.
shipped before you were ready. That's good.
Honestly,
That's what
my
self
whole
good
thing
really
is
says,
start
right?
messy and fix it. Kind of, but you know what? Honestly, out of the thousands and probably 10, 20,000 books I've sold, 3 people have pointed out the typos.
That's it. Only like about 3. That's
And one
pretty
of them was my
impressive. That's
mother-in-law,
cool.
God rest her soul. And one of them was a lovely lady in church. But honestly, 3 people, because th- they care more about how helpful it is.
Yeah,
But I
that's
obsess
right.
about, oh goodness, I need to go through every page now and fix the typos. Most people actually will give you grace for those things because
That's so
I'm
true.
not trying to be the best. I'm not trying to be the next best-selling New York Times author. I'm just
Hmm.
trying to help people.
That's right. And listening to the Lord and
Yeah.
just sharing what you hear. Can we talk a little bit about this moment? And I'm wondering if you had any kind of imposter syndrome or you're not enough. around this time. But in 2020, this was so pivotal for me. I remember I had been following you and I started Storywork in 2016 too. So it's like this whole time period where I just think collectively God was really moving and
Mm,
birthing new things. And then in a period of time, we were walking through the wilderness, like, what am I doing? What is this? And I think we're coming into this time of like building and growing and moving again, which is really interesting. But in 2020, you had this word before
goodness, yeah.
everything happened with COVID. It was unbelievable. And I remember reading it to friends around the kitchen table, like, listen to this guy, listen to what he heard, listen to what he wrote. And it was after so many of the things had
Yeah, yeah,
happened.
yeah,
And it's just those moments. And I've had these moments, they're like, it's like the mountaintop moments where it's like you ascend the hill and you hear so clearly it's wild. Can you talk about that
yeah.
and
That
what
was,
that
I mean,
looks
yeah, that was a
like?
bizarre moment. So it was at the end of 2019. We were coming into 2020, and everybody was putting out words 2020 vision and the year of double blessing. I think it was the 30th of December 2019. I had this agitation in my spirit all day. And so I
Wait,
remember
can we
me,
talk about that? What does
yeah,
agitation
I
feel
felt like there
like?
was something, when you feel like there's just something bubbling up inside you and you're not
Yep.
like, and you're like, I know it's the Holy Spirit. I know it's not last night's curry. Like, I know there's something, because Becky and I had an Indian last night. But I felt there was just something in my spirit that was trying to work its way. And that's not normally how I get prophetic words. It normally
Right.
comes in little
Okay.
nuggets or little phrases. But
Yep.
I just knew there was this thing. So I remember we'd been out for the day and I was driving and I was feeling this thing bubbling up. And so I came home and I hit record on my phone and I started speaking
Wow.
this stuff out and dictating it into my phone. And I came to the end of it and I was like, where did that come from? But I knew it was the Lord because,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
I
Wasn't
said,
you. Wasn't anything you
2020
thought
will be
of.
the most pivotal year of the last 50, and
Yep. I
it will
remember that.
shape the next decade. I
Yep.
There will be there will be lockdowns or something. That wasn't the
Yep.
word I used, but it
There
was
was
curfews,
something like that.
curfews,
Curfews. That's right.
curfews. The National Guard will be on the street.
Deployed.
Race issues will come to a peak. The
Yes.
economy will dip really suddenly, but it'll come
It
back
will be
quickly.
okay. Yeah.
And so I'm like, I didn't even, I'm in Ireland. I don't even know what the National Guard is at this point.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I get this, and again, this imposter syndrome kicks, and I'm like, I'm saying something completely different to all the prophets out there. Who am I? And so I sent it to my email list, which probably had 1,500 people at that time. And I sent it to, there was a page called 365 Prophetic, which I think is Lady Jennifer Leclerc. That was the only things I
Okay.
sent it to.
Okay.
I just didn't want it going anywhere else. And the
Right.
feedback I got on my email was really negative. People
So I'm
didn't want to
sure
hear
at
it.
this point
People,
I mean, you've got to be struggling a little bit,
my
right? Like you're,
unsubscribe list went through the roof. I lost more subscribers in 2 days than I'd
yeah.
ever lost. This is too
Yeah.
negative. This is not what the other prophets are saying. This is not what we want to hear. And I'm
So
like,
talk about feeling imposter syndrome or like doubt.
yeah.
And was I wrong? Was I off? I
But
mean,
there's also this sense where you know that you know that you know.
yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
couldn't have come up with that.
Yeah.
And
You knew
so
it wasn't
I
you.
just
Yeah.
went, you know what? I didn't go around shout. Quite honestly, here's the thing, Lauren. If I had published that more broadly, I would have been a prophet celebrity by June.
Yeah. Probably
Because
because
no, because I was
all
the
of it
only,
was
one of the
true.
few people who actually called what happened. So in one
Yeah.
sense, I'm actually quite grateful it didn't, because I
Yeah.
really didn't push it out any further. Because if I had, honestly, I would have been on all the, I would, it would, because it was so accurate. And I'm kind of
Yes.
relieved because I don't like the limelight, and so I'm
I
kind of
love
relieved.
that. Yeah. It was like God's almost like the protection
Yeah,
too
and so
over
I'm really
you in a way.
glad
Yeah.
because those who followed me came back. Actually, some of them came back and apologized. Fair play,
Mm,
and said, "Craig, we're really sorry that we unsubscribed or were so negative because this was March, April." They said everything you've
it's
said we're now
amazing.
starting to see happen, but there was
Yeah.
this sense of also going, I need to trust the Lord in me.
Hmm.
I need to trust that if the
Yeah.
Lord has called me to be, I'd never call myself at this stage a prophet. I don't. I've never called myself a prophet. I'm a prophetic voice. And I think
Yeah.
all God's people can hear
Yeah.
different levels of God's voice.
That's right.
But I need to trust that a little bit more. And I need to lean into that. And there was this sense of, okay, I might be saying something against the grain of what other people are saying. It may not be popular. At times it may
Yes.
not be politically correct or whatever that is.
Mm, yeah.
But if I really, with integrity, believe that this is the Lord, I have to steward that, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
And
That's
so,
good.
yeah, there has been again, just, I always think people hear God clearer than I do, and all of that. And so, and I don't have, some of my prophetic friends are so good at articulating in flowery language, all this stuff. I don't. I just write. I'm a very just straightforward,
Like
black and
simple,
white.
hey, this is
Yeah,
this is what it is.
and
This is what
that's
I'm
just,
hearing.
and so yeah, all of that. And so there's just been all of this sense of just going, Lord, you could have picked so many other people. If you've picked me, I don't get it, but I'm just going to try and steward it. And even though most people don't understand my accent, I'm just, I'm just going to try and steward this. And the Lord has been so gracious. He's been so, so faithful. And yeah, here we are, in 2025, and we're just seeing God's faithfulness in that. But I still, every time I make a post, every time I put out a word, every time I do
Yeah.
any of that, the same feelings are still there, because
Yeah.
who am I to
Still.
speak for the Lord?
Still, and I was thinking about what you said at the beginning, and I think this is interesting to unpack. Like you were saying that there's just seems to be a grace on it, and you'll move, in
Mm,
the direction that you see the grace. But we also know, and you've talked about this, that, with the unsubscribes or the feeling of imposter syndrome, there's also a resistance that comes too, because there is an attack, right, of your mind, and it's going to be fear and doubt and all those things. And sometimes there is going to be resistance. So, how
yeah.
would you talk about knowing that there's favor and there's a grace to move in a direction? But what's the difference between experiencing that resistance? Does that make sense?
Yeah. And the resistance can come in different ways. Sometimes it is purely spiritual, and you feel this intensity of just, it
Just like
can come in
heaviness or
sickness,
this.
heaviness, discouragement, all of that. Sometimes it comes through people.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
the Lord uses people and the enemy uses people. And
Yeah.
they're not bad people. They just are people who, and so,
Yeah.
yeah, you just, honestly, over the years, you have to develop. I mean, it used to send me into such a spiral when I'd read criticism or negativity. I mean, I would,
Yeah.
I could get
It's,
99 positive comments, and the one negative would, you know, I would
yeah. I
obsess
know
on
that
it for
feeling.
weeks. And I would go, I remember just early in my ministry, this happened, and I just went into this spiral of depression for days.
Oh,
I've learned a little bit to steward that and go, one, it's an opinion, and that's all it is. It's just an opinion.
right. Yeah.
Two, you rarely get criticized by anyone doing more than you. Um, Criticism rarely comes from up the top down. It normally comes from people behind a keyboard who have nothing better to do.
Yeah.
And three, I also ask myself, is there any truth in what they're saying? And so
That's a
I made
good
the
question
mistake
to
about
ask.
6 months
Yeah.
ago of Googling myself.
Oh no.
And I came across this whole site that I didn't even realize was there, where
Oh no.
where it was literally just a page of dedicated to criticizing me.
Oh wow. That's a
And
lot of effort.
I mean, they were all written within the period of a week. So I can't, this page just went viral for about a week, and it was all people from my home area as well, which was even,
Oh,
it was just
that's
anyway.
really hard.
And
Yeah.
it was hard. It was. And honestly, a lot of it was complete rubbish. But you know what? There were one or two comments there, and I thought, these people don't like me, and that's okay. But that comment, actually, they have a point there.
Hmm.
They actually had a point.
Yeah. Like, oh,
Uh,
hey, that is something I could
yeah.
take back and
And
refine
it
or
was,
work
there was
on,
one
or
particular
yeah.
comment. I'm not even going to
Yeah.
say what it was, but it was just one thing where they said I talk about something too much when I'm preaching.
Okay.
And I thought, you know what? They're possibly right there.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I heard this phrase, I think John Maxwell said it years ago, turn your critics into coaches.
Hmm.
And
It's
and
good.
so I took that. I discarded the rest, because I actually got up to told my church. I mean, there were things like Craig only comes out when he's preaching, and he leaves the second he's finished his message and gets out the back. And
Oh
You know,
no.
I thought I'm there an hour before the service and I'm the last one to leave. So it was just
Right. So
rubbish.
you
You know,
know that that's not
that's
truth,
rubbish.
right? So you
Yeah.
can separate it.
I do,
Yeah.
I knew it. So, but I just thought there was one comment where I thought I am actually, they were right about that. And so I'm going to be more cautious about that. And even in the early months,
I
even
love
the early
that.
years of my ministry, I remember using a sermon illustration once that I thought was funny. But some old ladies at the back said to me, Craig, we love you and we loved your message, but that illustration was a little bit inappropriate.
Okay.
And
So
I just
yeah,
thought, you know
I've
what, the
taken that in.
ask yourself, what's the source, and are these people for me? And
Yeah.
they had always
Great
been for me,
questions. Great
and
questions.
so they had only ever been for me. So I said, you know what, if they were, if that distracted from the rest of my 30-minute message, I'm never going to use that again. And I never have. And I've always been really careful since then. I mean, I still say totally inappropriate things, but nothing off color, you know.
Right. Right.
There's different, and so I think, yeah, I think
I
there is
love that you
elements
took
of,
that
you
in.
don't let it get to you, and you do have to develop a thick skin, but keep a tender heart, and that's
That's
hard.
right. That's the balance.
It is,
That's the
but
balance.
also
Yeah.
realize, you ask yourself, don't get so defensive that you write it off completely. Ask yourself, is there anything actually that even the Lord wants to use my enemies to teach me here?
Absolutely. It's probably the most refining, really.
Yeah.
There's so much you can learn from it once you're able to. And I love that you talked about the tender heart because I've been thinking a lot about maintaining a pure heart, and
Mm,
again, it's like that constant alignment saying, like, okay, Lord, like, this is what's happening. I'm feeling the resistance. And part of it can be an attack against your voice or fear or doubt or all this is very real. But then it's great that you were able to parse out that feedback and say, okay, wait a minute, maybe some of this is true. And now I can take this and use it productively,
yeah.
and I think that's the key,
Yeah, I'm
really,
preaching on David
in
this
all
Sunday where
things.
he gets up to fight Goliath, and the first attack he gets is from his brother Eliab or Eliab. And one of the things Eliab says to him is, I know how wicked your heart is.
Hmm.
And what was the thing God loved most about David? He was a man after
Wow, his
God's
own
own
heart.
heart. The
Wow.
thing that the enemy came through his brother,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's not the outsiders, the people closest to us. The
Imagine how
thing that
hard that must have
the
been.
enemy
Yeah.
attacked the thing that God loved most about him,
Hmm.
just as he was about to confront the giant that his brother wasn't willing to confront. And so
Wow.
I just
Yeah.
sometimes I think the enemy will often go after the areas in your life where you're most effective for the kingdom, because he
Yes.
knows if he can silence you or debilitate you there, he has won a great victory.
That's right. Yes, we know that personally in our family and
Yeah,
what we've walked through over
absolutely.
the last year.
Yeah.
For sure
And he
was the
goes after your
attack.
family. He goes
Yeah,
out
absolutely.
and
Yes.
I mean, what you have,
Yes.
we were chatting a little bit offline.
Yeah.
We went through a year of that in our own home. And it was interesting because you talked about, even, I hope you don't mind, you talked about having
No, it's
rats at
fine.
home.
Yeah.
We had rats in our home. And in the year that
Yeah.
we went through a year of hell that you described a
Yep.
minute,
That's
there
it.
was constant sickness in our home. We could hear the rats
Yes.
under the kitchen cupboards at times. And so we went through damp all over the wall, all our pipes getting blocked and backed up, all of that for a year. And so
Yes.
the enemy there will be these concerted times when he just comes again. And then you have to ask why? Why
Right.
such a concerted attack right now? Is
Yes.
there something that I'm about to cross over into that the enemy? I mean, when David
That's right.
faces Goliath, what happens in the chapter before that? He's anointed to be king.
Hmm.
I always say
Wow.
the enemy stands at the doorways to your destiny because he
Yeah.
has perceived, he doesn't know everything, but
Hmm.
through history, he has picked up patterns, and he saw David being anointed by Samuel. And
Yes.
so the enemy stands at those thresholds, those doorways, because he knows if he can block you there, you're ineffective and you'll never get through to the other side, never mind being ineffective. And so whenever I've started to face those, and it's hard because when you're in the battle, it's hard. You ask
Yes,
yourself,
it is.
what's on the other side of this that the enemy is trying to stop me getting to?
Yeah.
Because if the
That's right.
warfare is this intense, the bounty on the other side must be amazing.
Is amazing. That's right. Yes. And it's just to keep reminding yourself of that when you're in the trenches because it
And
can
it's
be
hard.
really hard and
It's hard.
really and really dark. And you can have a lot of doubt and a lot of fear. I know that we went through all of that, and I'm sure that you faced that too.
Listen,
And
I went through burnout and depression. So I'm not,
yeah, yeah,
I'm
right.
not making light of any of
It's
it. I ended
hard.
up on
Yeah.
medication for 6 months
It's
out
real.
at the back of that.
Yeah.
It is very
Very
real.
real.
And
Hmm.
yet, I look back now and I wouldn't change it.
No, same.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
change. I said this to my church last Sunday. You know, I- because if you change one thing there, everything, it's a bit like, I actually said it's a bit like the movie Back to the Future, where if you
Yeah.
change one thing from your past, everything else kind of gets out of line. And so I look at what the Lord has done in the period since then, and I go, if I would have changed some of that back there, we wouldn't be enjoying the favor we're
Mm.
having today. And
Yeah.
so
That's so good.
I wouldn't want it again. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. And I'm so glad we're through it and we will face other things in the future, but I
Yes.
wouldn't change a thing.
Yes.
And
So
and I
good.
know that you will be able to say the same for your own
Yes.
experience.
Absolutely. Yep. I already feel that way for sure coming out of it, because I see the fruit of it, and not just in tangible ways, but in looking at my family and looking at who they are and who they've become and who we've all become through walking through the hardship,
There's a depth,
and
there's a
there's a depth,
resilience, there's a
there's
compassion,
strength, there's,
there's a,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that only can come by walking through it and just
together.
remaining in alignment, yeah,
Yeah.
together. So there's nothing like it for sure. I do want to touch on just one more thing before we wrap up, and this is, I think this is related to imposter syndrome and you're not enough, and that's self-sabotage. So that is a behavior that, I think when we doubt ourselves, when we don't have that confidence, or when there's fear, we can actually just sabotage our
Mm.
own selves from walking in the fullness of our calling. So what does that look like for you, or what do you
Yeah,
see?
it can look like, yeah, I totally,
What are your
where
thoughts on
it
that?
can happen in everything. Let's take it to different areas. You get in a relationship with someone and you don't think you're worthy of them. And so you do something to cause them to break up with you before.
Yeah. Right.
Um,
Right. Yep.
because you know they're going to do it anyway. So I may as well,
Right.
you
You might
act
as
up.
well beat them to it.
I've watched, and that can be men and women, but I've particularly watched women do that, where if they've
Hmm.
been through, maybe there's been issues with their father, they don't feel worthy of love. They don't feel worthy, and so they push people away so that they don't get rejected.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
the self sabotage. You go into the workplace and you self sabotage by overreacting to things. You self sabotage by burning yourself out, trying to prove yourself.
Striving.
All of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And
Striving
for
is a
me
big
in
one.
ministry, I can self sabotage by over preparing sometimes, so that I spend
Hmm.
so much time trying to prepare the perfect message that I don't take care of some other things that are important. I mean,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
she's not a believer. There's a lady called Brianna Waste, and she wrote a book called The Mountain Is You. And,
Okay. I
it's
haven't
really
heard of
about
it.
just, we get in our own way.
Hmm.
Like a lot of our problems are not other people or even the enemy. It's just we get in our own way, and our biggest issue is the stuff inside us that we haven't dealt with.
That's so true.
So
Yeah.
for me, one of the areas where I self sabotaged for years was I had a poverty spirit. I had a poverty mentality. I grew up in a house where we only ever just had enough. And my dad worked two jobs. We came home at 5, then went out at 6:30, 3 nights a week to work another job, and we just only ever had enough. And so I grew up with this sense of, well, one of the things was you ate everything on your plate. You never left food. So I
Okay.
mentioned
Yeah.
casually earlier about having weight issues. That was
Yeah.
because whatever was put in front of me, you finished
You
it
had to
because
eat,
you had to
right?
eat it.
Oh, wow.
And
Yeah.
so when our son, up until a few years ago, I would get really annoyed when Elijah would leave food on the plate,
Right. Because sure,
because
that
that
was
was
how
my
you grew up.
mentality of, you don't leave food, there might not be enough tomorrow. We've paid for
Right.
this. And I
Yeah.
watched Elijah starting to get body issues. And so
Mm,
I just one
yeah.
day realized I am doing to him what was done to me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It manifested itself in getting into a huge amount of credit card debt in my 20s because for the
Mm.
first time ever, I had free money
Right.
with
Right.
20% interest in the 90s. I was given this credit card with like $15,000 like limit, and it was just like free money. And you know and so I spent most of my 20s getting out of debt in this like spiral of debt, and so I self every time I got money it was just running through my fingers like sand. And
Yeah.
so there
Yeah.
was just so a lot of that, it kept coming back to this identity issue. So
Good.
that's the it can be anything for you. It can be, but for me that's what it was. It was this poverty spirit, and so I had to. The Lord really began to confront me around that and say, "You need to break this. You need to deal with this because
I love
this is
that.
not my
Yeah.
plan for you." And
Yeah.
so it became really practical. I struggled with giving.
Hmm.
I would get up.
Yeah.
This is all I've told my church this many times. I would get up and preach about tithing, and I didn't tithe.
Wow.
And
Yeah. I
I've told
mean,
my church this.
that's so
I
amazing that you're just so real about
Yeah,
it because
I've
I
said,
think
guys,
it's
I know many of you struggle with this. Let me tell you
yeah,
my journey in this. And
right. Like
this
I
was when I
struggled
was an
with it.
assistant
Yeah.
pastor, and my senior pastor then actually gently called me out on it one day.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
one of the best things he ever did. And
Oh,
so
wow.
I began to tithe, and I began to see actually God is faithful with finances. And then
That's
a few
right.
years ago,
Begin to trust,
when we
fully
would go on
trust him.
vacation, it was always kind of the cheapest hotel we could find, or and a few years ago the Lord just began to challenge me about upgrading that. And I'm not trying to preach some prosperity thing here, but for me
Yeah.
this was my shift. So
Right.
we would stay on
Yeah.
3 stars, and he began to say to me, Craig, I want you to go to a 4 star. And we would walk into a 4 star, and we would feel like imposters. We would feel like everybody's looking at us. We would feel like
There's
everybody
the
knew
imposter syndrome
we don't,
again. That's
they don't
right.
belong here.
You're not
And then
qualified to be
about
here.
a year and a half ago, he began to say, Craig, I want you to, okay, you've got comfortable in 4 star. I want you to stay on 5 star.
He
And
was
we're like,
really,
oh my
really telling you to
goodness,
go.
And I remember the first time we went to, we were staying on a 4 star, and a 5 star had opened next door. This is funny. Those electric scooters.
Yeah.
We rocked up to it on these electric scooters and left them on the ground outside the door of the hotel. I mean, this is how non 5 star we were.
They're probably like, who are these?
No, we came out and then moved them. This was so funny. And so we walk in, and again, we're just feeling like total imposters. And but they were kind enough. They showed. I found people are more polite there, and they showed us around. And I came out, and I looked it up, and I just felt the Lord say, "I want you to book this now." And so we booked it. Went back 3 months later, and we walked in, and we felt like total imposter. Like we don't believe. But you know what? 3 months later, we went to another one. And just God kept challenging me on this and saying, Craig, I'm
Yeah.
breaking this in you.
You're
And
breaking
as
that
I'm
spirit,
breaking that,
that
and as
poverty mindset.
and as he began to do that, honestly, I'm trying to be careful, but money started flowing in ways that we
Mm.
had never seen before.
It
So
was just your heart, though. It was your heart before the Lord, what he
yeah,
was individually speaking to you about, refining you and
yeah.
challenging you in that way. I get what you're trying to say. Like, it's not prosperity,
No, it
it's
can be in
gospel,
any
it's
area of your
in
life,
any area of your
but for
life.
me,
Yeah.
this was the area. For you, it could be going for a better job. It could be buying a slightly nicer pair of jeans than you've bought before. Spending $20 more on a pair of jeans instead of getting the ones in Goodwill. Or when I'm just trying to, but for me, it was this. And so, you know, now when we walk into those hotels, we feel at home. We feel
Yeah.
completely at home.
Yeah.
It has
Yeah.
just been this shift. Now, there's other shifts that he's still doing within me, but for me, that was a major one. It is an identity shift. It is a
Yeah.
feeling of I, I'm worthy. I'm
Yeah.
worthy of
I'm
this.
worthy. Hmm.
Just as
Hmm.
worthy as anybody else in this room here.
Hmm.
Not I'm inferior. I'm inadequate. I am just as worthy as anyone else. And so I always say to people, what is the thing for you where the Lord would say, just stretch a little bit further.
Yeah.
Maybe it could be clothing, it could be a restaurant you go to. Instead of going to the
Hmm.
cheapest restaurant in town, go to the
Hmm.
mid-range restaurant in town.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
sense there's this where get into different rooms, maybe. Get
Mm.
around people who, and for me, this has been one of the big things. I've been saying, Lord, I want to be in rooms where I feel a little bit out of my depth.
Yeah.
I don't want to be the smartest person in the room or the most gifted person in the room. And so the Lord began to invite me into rooms where people were at another completely other level from where I was. And again, you walk in feeling like, what am I doing here?
Right. Why am I
And
here?
then you realize
Yeah.
these people actually, I have something to contribute here to these people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're
That's so
listening.
good.
They're actually listening to me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you get out and you're sweating and you're like, Lord, I can't believe I just did that. But you, there's this sense of imposter syndrome. Like, let's come back to what I said at the start.
Okay.
Anytime you're doing something new, bigger, or different, you will feel
Yes.
it.
Yes.
And so
Yes. That's
a
right.
lot of people feel stuck in life. If you're stuck, I always say it's normally an invitation to grow.
Yeah. That's
And if
right.
you're going to grow, you're going to feel imposter syndrome initially. That's all it
Yes.
is.
And
If
that's
you're
the
going to grow,
resistance.
that's the
Yeah. That's
resistance.
the
There's always,
resistance.
like when you go to the gym, and my son has started going to the gym and he's lifting 9 kilos. And I remember when I was lifting 9 kilos, dumbbells or 20-pound dumbbells.
I
And
was like 9 kilos. I'm trying to do
yes,
the
about 20
conversion in my
pounds,
head.
and and he's watching me lifting 100 pounds now in dumbbell. But I
Yeah.
said,
Yeah.
and he's going, Dad, look at, and I'm going, Elijah, but I started right where
You
you are.
started there.
I started
Yeah.
there, and I had to keep incrementally increasing the resistance. And I think
That's
there's
right.
something for that, where if you want to keep, this just came when I started going to the gym when I was younger. I remember I was starting to build a little bit of muscle, and my mum said, Craig, you don't want to build too much because you know it's when you stop working out, it's just going to turn to fat, which scientifically is wrong, but I didn't want to get into that with her. But I actually said this. I said, Mom, here's the thing. And I was probably about 19 or 20 at this stage. I said, Mom, I'm just not going to stop lifting. So it's not going
Right.
to be a problem.
Right. I'm
And
just going to keep going.
I'm 50 now, and I'm lifting heavier than
And
I
you're
ever
still
did.
going.
And
Yeah.
I just had this
Yeah.
because I bumped
That's
into my
right.
mum on the beach last week, and I just had this memory of her telling me that. And I just thought, you know what? I have this determination in life that I'm just going to keep growing.
Yes.
And if I'm going to keep growing, I'm going to keep pushing against resistance. And
Yeah.
if I'm going to
That's
keep
right.
pushing against resistance, I'm always going to feel the only people who don't feel imposter syndrome are the people who have settled at a level beneath which God has intended.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's some people who are fine with not growing.
Yeah.
They're not listening to this podcast because people who
Probably
they're
not.
not, and
Yeah.
they're not.
Because I'm
People who
always
listen,
growing.
people who listen
Want
to
to
things
grow.
like this don't want
Yeah.
to stay where they are.
Yeah.
But if you want to grow, get used to resistance, get used to opposition, get used to criticism, and get used to feeling insecure and imposter syndrome.
And in the midst of it, I think this is a great way to wrap up. Keep your heart in alignment, right? Keep
Yeah.
it pure.
Yeah.
And while you balance these things, right? You have all this over here that you just named, which is so real. But then remember, just stay in alignment.
Stay
That's
in
it.
alignment. Stay
Stay in
humble before the
alignment.
Lord.
Stay humble.
Humility
before
is
the
not thinking
Lord. That's
less of
right.
yourself. It is
Yeah.
thinking the same as yourself as God thinks of you.
Yeah, that's
It's
good.
not even thinking of yourself less.
That's good.
It's simply
Right.
thinking, what does God believe about me? And it's
That's
bringing
it.
my thoughts into alignment with his thoughts.
With his
That's
thoughts.
humility. That's genuine humility. We have
So
this
good.
false humility in the church that
Oh, yeah.
I could never look, or we try to act false. I want to live in alignment with what God says about me. If he
Yeah.
says I can, even if I don't think I can, I can.
Then you can.
Most of us believe God can do anything. We just don't think he can do anything through us.
Isn't that the truth? And, I find there's this new song. I don't know if you've heard it, 10th Avenue North. They're actually a band from
I've heard
West
of them, but
Palm.
yeah.
They originated here in West Palm Beach, but they have a new song that's called, I think it's Running in the Dark.
Okay.
And the words are just all about like learning to trust you. And I'm running in the dark with you. And that's literally how I feel and what I think of when you talk about this is like, it's learning to fully trust. Like even when God was kind of like, I want you to level up. I want you to go for 4. I want you to go for 5 or whatever that is in whoever's listening in your life. Like, where are you being nudged or pushed to like take that step out?
For some people, it will be start a podcast. Some people are listening. And I said, there's 1 or 2 people listening to this right now, and the Lord has been telling you for years, at least a year or 2, start a podcast. I don't have the right equipment.
I don't, yeah,
I don't.
maybe I'm not right for
I'm
it.
too
What am I
late.
going
I'm
to
too
say?
old.
Who am I
What am
going
I
to
going to
have?
say?
What,
Some of
yeah,
you are being called to write a book. You've written the draft. You've written the structure. What? Why would anybody want to read my book?
yeah,
That's normal. Write the
yep,
book.
that's right.
You know,
Yes,
stop
write the
and
book.
just get it out there. Do
Do
what
the
I did. Get it
thing.
out there with the typos and get it out there.
That's right. Just get it out
Some
there.
of you are being
Love it.
called to maybe step up in leadership in some area, and you're looking at everyone else thinking they're more qualified than you. Just do it. If the Lord is calling you to do it, He will give you what you need
He'll
to
give
do
you
it.
everything.
And so
you
let's
need.
take it away
That's
from
right.
any of the financial stuff, any of that. That is just,
Good.
it is every, some of you guys out there maybe listening to this, you're being called to ask that girl out in church that you've been gazing at across the sanctuary for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Ask her out. What's the worst? You don't think, listen, maybe she is just waiting for you to, but there is this thing where just take the step.
Yeah.
Our God is a motion sensitive God. When you move, He moves. When they put their foot in the Jordan, the river stopped flowing. It didn't stop flowing till they put their foot in. I would have said, God, stop it, then I'll put my foot in. And as we finish up, Lord, I just really believe the Lord is saying to people, what is the one step He has been calling you to take that you know He's calling you, but you've been fighting Him against it? Take the first step today.
I feel
and
that.
Watch what He does in your life.
So good. Craig, this is amazing. It's so good to see you and hang with you. I know we're going to do it again at some point somewhere. So thank you so much for being on, and we'll talk to y'all soon. Thanks so much for listening in.
Thank you.
Thank you.